Today, in this meeting, we have a situation that it's not typical for our potential workshops. Usually, we do the potential workshops within your company, within the different business areas. And there we have a lot of different perspectives, like from HR, from sales, from marketing, from manufacturing. They all bring a very different perspective on data. And I was a bit frightened today that this format would not work because all of you more or less have the same role or very similar role, because you all are the people focusing on data within your company. But nevertheless, it did work. You did have a very different perspective. So we talked about analytics on SAP data. We talked about how networks could be optimized at telecom using data. We talked about automation. We talked about production. We talked about that data also could be a threat if, for example, privacy rules would be implemented wrongly. And even in this very similar group with similar-minded people within similar job titles, the data is very, very different. So what we see on the slide on the right is what happened when I asked ChatGPT, what does data look like? It's a really big chaos. And usually that's at the beginning, the stakeholder perspective at our companies. A big chaos, very different perspectives. So what I would suggest for you when starting with data strategy and talking with your stakeholders around data is to align them on a common story and build a story for them, what data is for your company and how you want to talk about data within your company. And what I brought to you for the beginning of today is such a story. So, for example, what we use a lot to talk with business areas about data is the sensory system of your company analogy. Because of that, we had it even on the introduction slide. So if we look at this picture, it's maybe every one of you has seen it. It's very famous because it started the Impressionistic revolution by Claude Monet. But what not a lot of people know is that this painting exists because of a problem in the data pipeline. So what happened is that Monet needed glasses. Yeah, he was short-sighted, and he could not see France's second largest trading port at the time very clearly. So that was his perspective on this very big market. And if you are a painter, a very individual perspective can start a revolution and can look very aesthetic from an art point of view. But if you are a trader and not a painter, and you see your biggest market in this perspective, then you would have a problem. And you would be in this boat here at the foreground. You would see the marketplace blurry. Your competitors are in the other boats and they see the market clearly. So they are rowing at the shore, know exactly where to go first when they arrive and knowing exactly what to do when they arrive. And you will see this too late. So looking at data is the means how your company perceives the environment, perceives its competitors, perceives the market, and concerning process optimization, perceives itself and can act on this information. A lot of you talked about AI as well in the introduction. And if we look on the AI world, this problem is really more important, not less important, because what an AI does is that an AI needs to learn by observing the world, getting information about your products, about your processes, and you can see an AI as a child that first uses its sensory system, data, to learn about the world before it can use this knowledge to act. Of course, you can buy pre-trained models like ChatGPT or Claude or the other models that are around there. But what you get is like an employee that is in a graduate state and has learned a lot about the world as a whole and learned a lot about common knowledge that can be found on the internet that has been sourced to train this model, but it knows nothing about your company, your processes, your customers, the history of your customers, and so cannot do individual prediction use cases or automation use cases within your processes. So you would have to teach this graduate about your company and about your data to really have it work at your company. So in one picture, artificial intelligence brings more or less the same problems as data analytics brought for the past 30 years concerning data and the sensory system problem. So how do we approach both of them to build a data ecosystem within your company that works, that is focused on business value and is as efficient as possible? We propose always looking on two perspectives when talking about data, when talking about data strategy. So in one sentence, only those who identify potentials and have the right tools to leverage them can succeed. So on the one hand, we need the strategic vision to uncover the potential, to know how your business model works, how your business processes work, and how we can improve and transform upon that using data and AI, how to uncover hidden potentials, and how to get a clear vision for decision making within your company. But on the other hand, if you have this strategic vision and know exactly what to do and know exactly what you want to improve with data, you also need the operational maturity to do that. So you would need the business processes and the data management area. You would need the right roles, the right operating model, the right governance, the right culture and literacy, but you also need the right technology, the right data platform, and the right tool set to leverage the potential that your strategic vision contains. So you always have the job to work both sides of this problem. Let's start with the strategic vision perspective. Concerning the strategic vision perspective, you first have to find a way to talk about the data and AI-driven potential with your business areas. Because what always will happen is that the right answers on what to do next and what data and AI products would have the highest impact and work best for your company is deeply rooted within the knowledge of your business areas and within their knowledge about their business processes. So what you would need to find is a common base to talk with them about data and AI-driven potential. And for this, we propose building a map with two perspectives combining this to the strategic vision. So the first one would be maturity-based and potential-based. So we already said data is the sensory system of your company. So what first needs to happen is to sense the environment. Then you can start thinking about what you sensed. Then you can start acting on it. And then you can really start enhancing your product and your customer experience. In a more classical term, your journey would usually begin with descriptive analytics. So that's usually are the most low-hanging fruits and the data products most companies have already implemented. So for example, sales performance dashboard. I describe the world in a way that's easily understood and where the business can most efficiently derive insights from the data. Building on that, what would be a next step would be diagnostic. So, for example, if you have your sales performance dashboard and you see that you have a problem, for example, with customer churn, then you would usually ask the questions, what the cause of this problem. So, for example, you would make a root cause analysis and maybe would build a more interactive, more complex dashboard to go to the core of these problems. And if you understand these problems from a diagnostic perspective, and you know what mechanics cause these problems, then you can start predicting them. So, for example, if you want to make a demand forecasting for your supply chain management so that you know what materials to order before they run empty, then first you would need to understand what's the root cause of it, and if you know that, then you can look at the statistics, you can look at the early warning signs, and you can really go into the forecasting. And combining these, usually the next step would be the automation and AI perspective. So if I understand the core mechanics, how the different data is related, and how I know how my process works, and I can forecast what will happen if I do A and what will happen if I do B, then I can really go into process automation. So, for example, if you would have your demand forecasting, and then you build trust in your demand forecasting, and you really see, okay, this forecasting is right 95% of the time, then usually a next step could be, okay, why cannot this forecasting system order automatically? Why do I need to order manually? And then you get step by step into the automation. And after that, usually the two areas where the business cases come last is data as a product element or data as the product. That's something we really see if companies have a high maturity working with data, that they find ways to not just improve their business model, but to find new business models and to integrate data really deep into their product. So, for example, what could be data as a product element? We have seen this in the financial sector a lot over the last years. There was a new regulatory requirement concerning ESG reporting, so how ecologically, for example, a specific investment product is. And after reaching a certain maturity on this area, and after getting their ESG KPIs under control, they thought, okay, I did this because of compliance purposes, but wouldn't that be a quite good enhancement on my products? And so one of the best sellers in investments over the last years would be investment products that specialized on their ESG impact, and gave their customers a good feeling that if you invest here, we make certain that your investment is not harming the environment, for example. And last but not least, data as a product. There's a case I thought about when Philip made his introduction. Maybe you've seen it in the press in the last year. For example, there is Siemens. They area of Siemens that build engines for power plants, and so they have been for decades a very hardware-driven division, where you need to have the best hardware, have the most efficient engine. But one of their big new products is service-oriented and is a purely database product, because now if you are the owner of such an engine, then you can connect your engine to the cloud. And there is an AI run by Siemens that is analyzing how you use your engine, what output your engine creates given the inputs you give it, and calculates your efficiency versus the efficiency of the other users of the same engine. And then you get automated feedback if you could improve the configuration of your power plant based on the Internet of Things sensors that are within these engine at your specific customer. So this is the picture on this first perspectives on data-driven potential. So beginning with the data-enabled use cases, going to the data-driven use cases, you would have this 6 maturity steps. But what you also would need to get a map is, of course, a second axis, and that's the topic data mobilization. So clustering the different areas of data, you, for one, would have to look at structured versus unstructured data. So, for example, structured data is the SAP connection we talked about introduction, or the network optimization data. So a lot of that would get to you in a structured form. But on the other hand, there's a lot of unstructured data that you could have access to, and maybe you don't use it today. So, for example, we had a project at a producing company a few months ago, and they get a lot of pictures of point of sales where their products are presented. And it took them a while to recognize that these pictures not only contain their products, but what you would see are their products at a better position in the shelf as the products from their competitors. And you can see the price tags of their products and their competitors' products within the point of sale. And so you have this unstructured data that has been overlooked for years. And now, with the enhancement in AI and the possibilities that has been developed over the last few years, using this picture information efficiently, they now could use this data stream that they had for years for their marketing feedback. And now they have incentives for their point of sales, that they get more percentages rebate if the products are presented well, and they know better what their competitor prices are. And so this unstructured perspective of data opened a set of new use cases. Also, the topic batch versus real-time data is a topic where you really need to go into the requirements engineering with your business units, because the requirements of your data platform and the consumption, if you are in the cloud, for example, are widely different, which of these use cases you use. And there can go a lot wrong as well. For example, if a batch-based use cases over time transforms to real-time use cases. And first, the business unit says, yeah, refresh this once a day. And then they say, okay, can you do it twice a day? Can you do it hourly? And half a year later, the IT department has configured the batch process to refresh the data every 5 minutes. And then they wonder why their cloud consumption is exploding. And yeah, of course, because the batch toolset used for this use case is not optimized to run every 5 minutes. But if you would have switched to a more real-time oriented technology, then you could have saved a lot of cloud consumption. So a very important perspective as well. Yeah, and last but not least, internal versus external data. So are you only using the data that you have within your company, or can you facilitate data from partners, from external sources that are open source or that you can buy? And how are you capabilities to transform these external data to internal data from your company? So, for example, a very interesting case with an art supply company. We did a project last year, was that they looked at Instagram feeds. So it's a combination of external data and unstructured data. And there they saw, okay, there is a hype for a specific art style or for using a specific sort of art equipment, and then they knew, okay, this hype is coming. I have to really pump up my production in this specific area because if there is an Instagram hype for this art style, then the demand will go up in a few months. So yeah, also uh, really good supply chain case with external and unstructured data. And yeah, if as a next step you combine these two perspectives, then you can build a map, and that will be the practical case we will do later, because these kinds of maps can be a really good basis for workshops with your business to discuss how they are using data today, where you have areas where you don't have use cases at the moment, and what your next steps could be. So this map has two really important functions. One, to give a structure to the discussion, and to see if you have holes within your data usage where you can address them. Yeah, okay, you have a lot of diagnostic use cases, but not one of them is predictive. Why is that? Do you know what the tool set we have, like Power BI, for example, can do for you to really have a predictive element in your diagnostic use cases? Why are you not using it today? And there you can start the discussion, there you can get creative, and there you have a structure to show your business what would be possible and what they're not using today. On the other hand, this map tends to cluster use cases that have a similar requirement profile from a technological and an organizational perspective. So for example, if I have a big cluster here in the predictive area of use cases, where I see, okay, there are a lot of potential that is not leveraged today, then I would know exactly what tool set to add to your data platform. But for example, if I see, okay, I have a lot of potential in the descriptive area today, maybe it would be cheaper to first facilitate the descriptive potential. And if I have achieved the business value there, then I can go predictive in the next step. So with these clusterizations along the map, you really would help you to link the business perspective with the enablers in the technology and people perspective. And what you could also do is to have a specific discussion about technological trends and the impact of the technological development. So for example, if you want to have a discussion with your business areas on AI and how AI can improve upon their data usage today, then usually you would talk about two areas. You would talk about, okay, what unstructured data do you have or could you get that you are not using today? And do you know how AI can help you to transform these unstructured information into structured ones? And do you know how much more easier it is to do this today than it has been 5 years ago? And knowing these capabilities, what would you do different today? And the same perspective is in the predictive and automation use cases. So that's really the areas where you could talk about an AI impact with your business units. And if not AI is the technological topic, but maybe it's you want to talk about fabric, and then you could highlight for example, the external unstructured data or the external structured data, and talk about how much more easy it is to integrate different data sources and to let partners participate with a fabric architecture than it would be with your classical architecture. So what I'm saying is that you can lay your technical potentials on this map and have exactly the specific areas where you want to talk with your business units about. Yes, switching the perspective from the strategic vision to the operational maturity would be the question, what do I need to achieve this potential? So what are the capabilities I need to build? And for that, we use a factory analogy. So we call it the business value factory. So the core problem you would see here is that you have a lot of ideas, you have a lot of challenges, and hopefully with the potentials workshop and then talking about the potentials map, you would get a lot more business ideas that you had earlier, and you would uncover a lot more challenges. But now you have the problem, okay, how to get these business ideas to generate value? And to do this on a high level perspective, the first thing you would need is a process. So you would build your data factory, but you need to have a requirement engineering process. You have a standardized format. So for example, a potential and use case canvas or a specific format talking about use cases and a mechanic to prioritize use cases. For example, we use a canvas-based approach where we ask the business units to imply what value they would get when a specific use case would be implemented. We can make an estimate how costly this use case would be, and with that we come to a business case, and then we have a base for prioritization. So that's very important that you have these early steps of your process standardized and decide upon the right use cases to implement. And then, of course, you would need a functioning process, how to get the use cases then into data products, into solutions, and used by the business to generate the business value. And for that, you would need a functioning factory to develop these use cases. And to do that, you need two perspectives. You need the technology perspective and you need the people perspective. So the technology always is the base. You need to know which architecture you want to use. You need to know if you want to be on-premise, if you want to be in the cloud, what hyperscalers, and have a functioning architecture. But only if this architecture gets used right, then these use cases can be implemented into data products. And to use the technology right, that's where the people perspectives come in. And there are questions like, how's your operating model? So what roles and what processes do you have enabled? Do you work with the business area in a hybrid approach and have a high self-service quote, or do you want to build the data products more centralized and then ship them to the business from a centralized unit? And of course, you would need to talk about the data governance, who owns the data, which should always be business people, and who owns the data products, what are the responsibilities, how is a data product or data item documented that everyone can find it, for example, in a data catalog. That really helps driving this process along and communicating the data potentials and the existing data products to the business. And of course, last but not least, you would have to look at the culture and the literacy. So the literacy, for example, if you have an operating model with a high self-service, then you need to have the capabilities in the business areas to use the tools that you provide to build the reports, for example. And of course, the data culture, if you have the best predictive reports, but management says, yeah, okay, I know it already, I don't have to look at the report, then the report will not help you. So the culture perspective is very important as well. Looking at the perspectives, the next question would be, how could a project look like to develop a data strategy that brings both perspectives along? And doing that, we usually focus on three process steps into our project. So the first one would be your potentials are shaped into a strategic vision. And what we would do there is to develop a vision statement where you would want to go. We would help you or use, if you already have it, your business process map and look how your company works, what you want to improve. And the answers in the potential and vision perspectives can be quite diverse. So for example, we did a project last year with an airline that had a change in their business model, and management had decided on quite a change in their business model, so that they would need to get a lot more data driven than they had been, and to have features like dynamic pricing and more individual relations with the agencies selling their tickets and such things. And so we had a very business driven vision, and so a very business driven scope for our data and AI strategy project. On the other hand, one of the big topics of today is that business objects from SAP is going out of service in some versions, and so a lot of our customers that have quite an old data setup based on SAP are looking to renovate it, and are looking, for example, into Fabric or the SAP Cloud, and building their data platform with a new technology. So that this could be a vision as well, yeah, that you would look at, okay, how do I migrate the existing use cases? How do I make a most efficient migration project? And how do I enable my business to use the new features and the new capabilities from the new modern technology, to not only have a migration project, but to also have a project where I can achieve more than I did with my last data platform. Yes, so after we have this vision and the direction for the project, we would use a format like the potential map we will work on in a few minutes, and then build upon these use cases to design the target architecture and the target operating model and the target governance concept, so that we know what is the goal, and how would the organization look like maybe in 2, maybe in 3 years, when we have finished this transformation and are on the new architecture, for example, have established a data mesh organization or a hybrid data organization, or whatever we design based on your use cases, what would be the best operating model for you as a company. And if we know this target and know where we are headed, then as a next step, we would build your data journey. That's the fourth part of today's workshop. So we will show you an example in more detail at the end. But what we would do in essence is to build an horizon plan, which usually is about 4 horizons, where we would start with the strategy project, and then we would work out what are the best proof of value use cases, and what should be done first to really show the business that the design we made in the previous phase really works and really improves upon how they work with data. And then first we would have a minimal viable product from the technology and from the people perspective, and have the showcase use cases. And after that we will cluster the business use cases in different groups, and work on one group at a time to have incremental improvements on the people and technology perspective, to enable one business case after the other, to have a really good aligned business outcome and cost structure, that you always have a good business case for at least the next quarter, and you can talk with your management how you enable them, what the business outcome would be, and never are in the position to have to a lot of costs that are only have only a good return on investment in 1 year's time. So that's a very bad situation when talking with management. So we really want to have this quick business cases that have every step of the way a business outcome. Yeah, combining these different topics is our data and AI strategy framework. So it really is the summary of the topics we have discussed with the previous slides. So on the left, you see the three steps we go through. In the potential phase, we do the assessment, we do the potential analysis, we look at your data ecosystem, and we'll define the vision and mission with you. Then in the design phase, we make a deep dive into the business perspective, especially what use cases, what use case clusters, how your data architecture from a business perspective should be, and also look at the enabler topics, people and technology, and design how your future would look like. And last but not least, in the journey perspective, we would suggest a project program and the roadmap and the change management set up how we make the design from the middle phase a reality.